The day my name finally appeared on the door at the law office. The kind of thick frosted glass you see in old movies. I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Pride. Not the smug kind. The kind you earn. Late nights, years of defending clients I didn't always like. Giving up holidays with family. Taking cases that drained the life out of me. All of it had led to this. I was officially Trevor Miller, partner. I should have been floating. I should have walked through our front door that evening to champagne or a simple handwritten note from Emily. But what I got instead was a push notification from a delivery service while I was still riding the elevator down to the parking garage. It read, "Your order has been delivered." Strange. I hadn't ordered anything. I clicked it open out of idle curiosity, already half distracted by congratulatory texts from colleagues. It was a bouquet delivery, red lilies, white orchids, and something called ranunculus, delivered to our house. I tapped the tracking image and stared at the confirmation photo. There was our doormat, our welcome sign, our door. The bouquet sat in full bloom against the backdrop of my front porch. I sat in the driver's seat longer than I needed to, replaying the details in my mind. No birthday, no anniversary, definitely nothing I had arranged. By the time I got home, the bouquet was already off the porch and into a vase, centered perfectly on our dining room table like it belonged there. The same table where we had hosted friends, toasted New Year's, argued over bills, whispered dreams late at night. The same table where I had asked her, years ago, if she thought we'd ever outgrow our apartment and our ramen-filled nights. Now it held a message from someone who was not me. A little folded note card peeked out between the stems. I pulled it loose. One letter. Just L. That's all. I heard her heels before I saw her. "Hey, babe," Emily called from the hallway. She didn't look surprised to see me or the flowers. If anything, she looked mildly annoyed, like I had caught her mid-thought. She walked over and offered a quick kiss on the cheek. Too quick, and said, "Oh, those? I think someone from the consulting team sent them. Probably Leonard's assistant. She's been all over the place lately." Her eyes didn't meet mine. "Leonard?" I asked, still holding the card. "That the same Leonard you've been in meetings with every other night for this leadership program?" She blinked, as if trying to process whether she had given too much away. "Yeah, probably. We did that big dinner last week. Might be some confusion with addresses." "It's nothing," she said. Turning toward the kitchen like that ended the conversation. The name stuck. Leonard. I'd seen his name on her Google Calendar recently. Usually after hours, marked vaguely as LP session or stakeholder review. She had said it was all part of a new mentorship circle she'd been nominated for, exclusive, confidential, a career game changer. Except I'd looked. I'd Googled the program, the firm, even emailed a colleague of hers I'd met once at a fundraiser. No one had heard of it. I stood there staring at the bouquet, the note card crumpling slightly in my hand. She, meanwhile, began rummaging through the junk drawer, humming tunelessly. "You're not the one who put them in the vase?" I asked. She glanced over her shoulder. "They were on the porch when I got home. Figured they were congratulatory. Maybe from your office." I raised an eyebrow. "They were addressed to you." That made her pause. "Oh, maybe a mix-up then." That was it. Just a shrug and a pivot. I didn't say anything else. I didn't accuse her. But something cold settled in my gut. The kind of cold that isn't about fear, it's about clarity. I've been brushing things off for a while now. The late-night meetings. The changed phone password. Her sudden interest in wine tastings and out-of-town conferences. She had explanations for everything. Reasonable. Neat. And I had bought every single one. Until now. Later that evening, she emerged from the bedroom wearing the red dress. Not just any red dress. The one she had called too revealing when she first tried it on in a boutique last fall. I told her she looked stunning. She'd laughed and said, "Yeah, if I was trying to start trouble." She was wearing it now like it was armor. Lips painted, earrings glinting, heels that clicked like punctuation. "Big dinner?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "Bored thing," she replied, slipping her clutch under her arm. Dress code's a little fancier this time. She smelled like the perfume she only wore for holidays. For anniversaries. For me, the door closed behind her with a soft click, and I was alone. I stood in the living room for a long time, listening to the silence that followed. My suit jacket still hung over the back of a chair, my briefcase slumped beside it. I should have been celebrating. Instead, I sat on the edge of the couch and stared at the bouquet like it was a riddle. The red lilies were fresh, unblemished, like they hadn't even traveled. It wasn't the flowers that broke me. It wasn't even the note. It was the way she dismissed it, like she had already practiced the story. And maybe she had. The next morning, I stared at the empty spot beside me in bed. The sheets were still cold. Emily hadn't come home last night. Or if she had, she'd slept in the guest room without making a sound. The red dress was gone from the closet. So was the clutch. Her perfume lingered faintly in the air, a ghost haunting the edges of my morning. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to will away the fog of denial. But the puzzle had started forming, and once you start seeing the pieces for what they are, you can't unsee them. There were the obvious signs, the ones I'd ignored. Like the phone, her phone. Emily had always been casual about it. We used to swap playlists, share silly memes, joke about how boring our messages were. Then, slowly, she started pulling it closer. Tighter. Her screen always face down. Her notifications silent. And the password had changed sometime in March. I only knew that because I had tried to use her phone once to check a route while mine was dead and the 6-digit screen stared back at me like a barrier. It's part of the company's new privacy policy, she said when I asked about it. Reasonable. Convenient. Then there was the leadership program. Supposedly a confidential mentorship initiative tied to a strategic consulting firm. Invite only, she had said, like it was some elite society. She talked about it just enough to make it sound real, but never enough to allow questions. I'd searched the program online. Found nothing. No landing page. No press release. Not even a LinkedIn mention. For someone as public-facing as Emily's firm, it was odd. Next were the hotel receipts. I had come across them by accident, buried in our shared bank account under miscellaneous travel. They didn't match any conferences. One was for a Wednesday. Another for a Sunday night. She had explained them away, of course. Emergency planning session. Leonard was flying in and the team needed to realign before the quarterly retreat. I didn't argue at the time, but I remembered feeling the itch behind her words. The kind of itch that doesn't quite go away. Then there was the bracelet. Our anniversary bracelet. I had a custom-made platinum chain with 3 charms, each symbolizing something meaningful between us. She had worn it every day since I gave it to her. Until one afternoon in May, she told me she had lost it at a yoga studio. Must have slipped off when I was changing, she said, her eyes distracted by the screen as she spoke. I offered to help her look for it. She declined. It's just a bracelet, Trev. It wasn't. And I didn't forget it. A few weeks later, during a mindless scroll through Instagram, I landed on a profile I didn't recognize, Leonard Barnes. I'd heard the name, obviously. He was a startup consultant. Tall, well-dressed. Always tagged at wine bars or rooftop events. His life seemed curated and artificial. But one photo caught my eye. It was from a private networking dinner at some sleek hotel downtown. Leonard smiling. Arm half raised as if taking the selfie. In the background, partially blurred, was a woman in a fitted black blazer and sleek heels. Emily. Same hair, same profile. But it wasn't her face that made my stomach twist. It was her wrist. Barely visible, catching the light, was the unmistakable curve of the missing anniversary bracelet. Still looped around her wrist, still intact. I didn't know how long I stared at that photo. 10 minutes? 20? I zoomed in, ****, then closed the app. I told myself it wasn't proof. But it was. The lies weren't loud. They weren't even particularly clever. They were subtle. Paper thin. And that was the worst part. She hadn't even bothered to make them believable anymore. Somewhere between the changed passwords and the emergency retreats, she had stopped thinking I needed to be convinced. And now, after the bouquet, after the red dress, the silence, it all started to lock into place. I started writing things down. Not to play detective, but because I needed to see it all in one place. My mind had started doing the thing it does when a case goes south, tracking patterns, identifying inconsistencies, tracing behavior over time. The late nights, the business trips, the sudden interest in expensive wine and rooftop venues. The name Leonard appearing more and more frequently. A reservation from 2 weeks ago, Emily's card, charged at a restaurant downtown. One she said she had visited with the team. But the receipt didn't include a group table or even more than 2 entrees. I looked at the statement again. The tip was generous. The timestamp? 10:47 p.m. Not a work dinner. Something shifted in me after that. Not anger, not yet. More like gravity. As if I was finally standing on solid ground after months of floating in a lie. And it was heavier than I expected. I started paying attention to the way she answered questions too vaguely. Her stories leaned on other people's names as alibis. She had started borrowing details that couldn't be confirmed. I was with Marissa. Leonard had the itinerary. It was a company expense. She was careful but not careful enough. That week, I tested something. I asked about a conference in New York she'd said was under review. I told her my firm was considering partnering with one of the same sponsors. Her eyes flickered just for a moment. She smiled, but her tone was off. Oh yeah, I think that got canceled. Or moved. I can double-check. She never brought it up again. I began double-checking for myself. Small things. Background faces in her selfies. Hotel lobby carpets I could reverse image search. Calendar screen * TS that didn't match time zones. She hadn't just lied. She had become good at it. It scared me how easily she adapted. What scared me more was how long I had let it go. She was still polite. Still affectionate when she needed to be. Still signed our emails as Emily and Trevor when RSVPing to weddings. But something had left her eyes. That quiet openness. That safety I used to feel even during fights. Gone. Now I felt like a stranger watching a stranger, like living in a rental house staged to look like home. I couldn't decide what was worse, the possibility that she had fallen in love with someone else or that she simply didn't love me anymore and didn't care enough to end it. There's a specific kind of pain that comes with suspicion. It's corrosive. It doesn't scream. It whispers. It eats at your faith. And then one day you look around and realize you trust nothing. Not the receipts. Not the memories. Not even your own judgment. By Thursday, I had made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her with half-truths or questions that she could deflect. I needed the full picture. I called the florist. The bouquet had been ordered online, billed to a card under the name L. Barnes, and delivered using express same-day service to our home address. The message attached to the order had been personalized but simple. Looking forward to tonight. L. They had a copy of the receipt. I asked if they could email it to me. The woman on the phone paused for a moment, but I gave her my credentials, explained the situation with just enough sadness in my voice to sell the story. She agreed. When the email arrived, I stared at the PDF like it was a subpoena. Leonard Barnes. I had never met him. But I was about to. Saturday came with a gray sky and a hollow feeling in my chest. I had barely slept the night before. Not because of rage or heartbreak, those had already come and gone in waves, but because my mind had been consumed by clarity. There's a strange calm that descends when the truth is finally close enough to touch. That morning, I showered, shaved, and dressed like I was heading into court. Crisp shirt, dark jacket, polished shoes. I didn't know what I expected to feel when I saw them together, but I knew I needed to see it. I needed to confirm it with my own eyes. No more screen * TS. No more receipts. No more shadows. I slid the floral delivery receipt into the glove compartment before I pulled out of the driveway. The address was printed clearly at the top, Colton Hotel, 520 Westlake Avenue, room 912. It was a luxury hotel in River North, clean lines, gold finishes, the kind of place executives booked for client dinners and upscale trysts. I parked across the street in a pay lot and sat there for almost an hour, watching the entrance like a man surveilling a crime scene. People came and went. Valets rushed from car to car. Tourists emerged from revolving doors with shopping bags and sunglasses perched on their heads despite the clouds. I didn't see Emily. I didn't see Leonard. But I felt them. At 2:06 p.m. I got out of the car. The lobby was polished and loud, muted jazz playing overhead, clinking glasses from the bar area, the faint hum of idle conversation. I walked straight to the front desk, trying to steady my breathing. The concierge, a young woman with a professional smile, looked up. "Hi there, checking in?" she asked. I shook my head. "Actually, I'm here to meet my wife. Emily Barnes." She booked under her maiden name. She typed something, scanned the screen, then nodded. "Room 912. Would you like me to ring her?" "No need," I said, returning her smile. "I've got a key." She didn't question it. I had practiced the line enough times to sound like I meant it. Her eyes flicked to the side, then back to the screen, and she handed me a card key. I walked toward the elevator, heart pounding, not from fear, but finality. On the 9th floor, the hallway smelled like lavender and polish. The carpet was plush. Room 912 was at the end, corner suite. I stood in front of it for a full minute. My hands shook, but I didn't hesitate. I slid the key into the reader. A soft beep. A green light. The door opened with a quiet click. Inside, the lights were low, but the curtains were open. City light poured across the room in wide gray stripes. Her shoes were by the door, black heels, the kind that made her 2 inches taller and cost more than I wanted to know. Her clutch sat on the console table, half-zipped, a corner of a hotel key card sticking out. There was music playing softly from a Bluetooth speaker, some kind of instrumental jazz. An empty wine glass sat on the marble counter. A second one was on the nightstand. That red dress was draped across the arm of a chair, a gold bracelet resting on top of it like punctuation. I stepped further in. The door to the bedroom was slightly ajar. I don't remember what I expected, tears, screams, apologies. But what I found was silence. Heavy in *mate silence. They were asleep. Or at least still, in that post-everything way people are when nothing else exists in the world but skin and breath. She was curled toward him. Leonard Barnes was unmistakable. Sharp jawline, close-shaved beard, dark watch still on his wrist. The same man from the photos. The same man from the Instagram story with her bracelet in the background. He looked exactly like the kind of man who didn't believe in consequences. Emily didn't stir. I stood there for what must have been 30 seconds. Long enough to see everything I needed to see. Long enough to decide who I was going to be next. I reached into my pocket and took off my wedding ring. I turned it slowly in my fingers. For a moment, I remembered slipping it onto her hand at the altar. Her eyes had shimmered back then. Her vows had trembled just slightly. It had felt real. I placed the ring gently on the nightstand, right next to her phone. Neither of them moved. No dramatic exits. No confrontations. No yelling. Just a single moment, quiet, sharp, final. I stepped out of the room and pulled the door shut behind me. I didn't walk fast. I didn't look back. The hallway felt wider on the way out. The elevator arrived almost instantly. By the time I reached the lobby, my heart had slowed. I passed the front desk without a word. Outside, the air had turned cool with the scent of rain in the wind. I got in my car and sat there for a long time. That night, I didn't go home. I drove to the firm and let myself into my office, pulling the blinds shut behind me. I opened a secure browser window and began moving money. Our joint accounts were already mapped out. I knew which cards were shared and which ones were mine alone. I emptied my half into a private account. Next came the files, digital records, backups, *TS, copies of the hotel receipts, the florist invoice, the Instagram photo of the bracelet, and everything else I had gathered. I sent a single email to my attorney. Subject line, initiate divorce. Attached were the documents. In the body, I wrote, no confrontation. No reconciliation. I'll handle the property split. She can keep the furniture. I want my name back. I signed it, attached a scan of my signature, and clicked send. My phone buzzed just once, an alert from Emily's calendar, dinner with Elle. I turned it off. The rest of the night passed in silence. I stayed in the office, reclined in my chair with the lights off. At 3:15 a.m., I finally allowed myself to sleep, not deep, but deep enough. When I woke up, the sun had just *N to rise. It was Sunday. A new week. I walked out of the office building with a small duffel bag, my laptop, and my nameplate from the office door. That was all I took. Emily texted once that afternoon. Can we talk? I didn't answer. That evening, I sent a single message to my building manager requesting the locks be changed. She hadn't come home yet. I didn't want to be there when she did. I stayed with a friend that night. He didn't ask questions. Just handed me a drink and pointed to the guest room. For the first time in a long time, I slept without checking the time. No alerts. No half-awake scrolling. Just sleep. And that's when I knew. I didn't need revenge. I needed distance. I never stepped foot back into that house. The next morning, before the city had really woken up, I was already 10 steps ahead. I called in a favor from a friend in corporate real estate and got access to a short-term lease near the lake. Fully furnished, month to month, no questions asked. It wasn't home, but it didn't need to be. It just needed to be mine. By noon, I had already canceled the utilities in my name at the old address. Internet, gas, water, all gone from my ledger. The shared Netflix, Spotify, and even our Amazon Prime account deleted or converted. Everything that once tethered us together in daily conveniences unraveled like a sweater thread. I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. And freedom, it turned out, was remarkably logistical. I moved money with precision. Our accounts had been technically joint, but I knew which portions were mine. I transferred my salary deposits to a new bank, closed the credit cards with both our names on them, and froze the shared emergency savings. Not to hurt her. Just to protect myself. I updated passwords, work, personal, medical, insurance. The digital traces of me that had been vulnerable to her proximity were wiped clean in less than a day. Years of shared life erased in an afternoon of determined clicks and document scans. I never packed a bag from the house. The few personal items I wanted, my watch, a few books, the old sailing photos from college, I had duplicates or digital versions of all of them. Everything else she could have. The couch we picked out together. The silverware. The framed photos that now felt like a museum exhibit of someone else's marriage. Let her keep the stage. I didn't want to be part of the show anymore. The divorce paperwork moved fast. My attorney, Marianne, didn't waste time. We're filing for irreconcilable differences, citing evidence of infidelity. Based on the hotel confirmation and the financials, we'll request a clean split, no spousal support, no contest. I agreed. Emily didn't respond to the filing for 3 days. When she finally did, it was with an email that felt like a mix of panic and performance. Trevor, can we please talk before this gets out of hand? This doesn't have to be how we end things. There was no apology. No confession. Just a fear of consequences dressed in familiar punctuation. I didn't reply. I asked Marianne to handle all communications going forward. Meanwhile, our mutual friends began to notice the shift. The dinner invitations stopped. The group chats slowed. A few people reached out gently, cautiously. Hey, man. Everything okay? Haven't seen you two around lately. I gave them the same response. Just taking some time. Hope you're well. I wasn't interested in defending myself or casting her as a villain. I wasn't even sure I had the emotional bandwidth to explain it all. What mattered was that I was out. Cleanly. Without spectacle. She called once. A single ring before it went to voicemail. Her message was short. Trev, please? I'm sorry. I didn't know how to tell you. Can we meet? Just once. I didn't save the voicemail. I didn't need to hear it again. It wasn't about closure. It was about control. She'd lost it and I wasn't going to hand it back. The part that hit hardest was how easily I slipped out of the life we had built. I always thought ending a marriage would be dramatic, shouting, storming, broken plates. But it wasn't. It was just decisions. One after another. And each one made the next one easier. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even drink. I just watched it all fall away, layer by layer, like snow melting off a roof in spring. Quiet, inevitable, and strangely peaceful. The only time I hesitated was when I saw our wedding album on her public Google Photos page. She hadn't taken it down. The photos were still there, her in the white dress, me with the crooked boutonniere. Our friends smiling. Our parents tearing up. The captions were intact, best day ever. I clicked through them one last time. Then I blocked the link. My days took on a new rhythm. Mornings were spent running along the lake, afternoons buried in legal lectures and academic planning for my transition to teaching, evenings spent reading or answering emails from law students curious about appellate work. One of my students, a second-year named Malik, asked me during a virtual workshop, how do you keep your cool when someone clearly lied to you on the stand? I smiled without thinking. Because the truth always waits. And when it shows up, it doesn't need to yell. It just stands there. He nodded like it made sense. It felt good to say it out loud. By the end of that week, Emily's lawyer submitted a non-contest response. No fight. No appeal. Just a quiet acknowledgement. It didn't surprise me. She had never really been the type to stay for the cleanup. Still, there was a part of me that waited for the storm, for the explosion, for the reckoning. But it never came. She didn't show up at my door. Didn't write long letters. Didn't try to win me back. Maybe it was shame. Maybe it was calculation. Maybe she knew she had lost the one thing that mattered most, my trust, and that nothing else she could offer would matter without it. I stopped checking her social media. It was like staring into a closed window of a house I no longer lived in. Let her post sunsets. Let her caption them with recycled quotes about growth and healing. Let the likes roll in. I didn't need to know. One night, a friend sent me a **T. It was from Emily's Instagram. A caption beneath a photo of her at a wine bar, glass in hand, red lipstick perfect. You can't lose what was never really yours. Broken heart #healing #truth hurts #growth. I stared at it for a long time. Not because it hurt, but because of the irony. She was trying to flip the script. Make herself the injured party. The poetic survivor. The wounded heroine in her own narrative. And I didn't care. That was the moment I knew I was free. I had made my exit quietly. And somehow that made it louder than anything she could post. It was a week after the papers were signed when I finally made the drive out to Evanston. I hadn't been there in over a year. The last time was Christmas, eggnog, cigar smoke, and a military-grade handshake from Colonel Richard Caldwell, Emily's father. "Call me Rick," he used to say. "But only if you've earned it." I used to respect him. More than that, I used to admire him. He was the kind of man who commanded a room without raising his voice. Sharp, composed, dignified in the way ex-military men often are. He had spent over 30 years in the army, most of it classified. Retired with honors. Organized to the point of obsession. His lawn was immaculate year-round. His shoes always polished. Every photo on his wall was aligned like an officer's medals. And somewhere in all that precision and pride, he had helped raise the woman who broke me. I called ahead. He answered on the second ring. "Trevor," he said evenly. "I was wondering if I'd hear from you." His tone was calm. Not surprised. Not shaken. Just aware. "Can I come by?" I asked. "You can." That was it. No small talk. No, "How are you holding up?" Just a simple opening of the gate. His house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac tucked behind tall hedges and a wrought iron fence. Same flag flapping above the porch. Same stiff posture as he opened the door. He looked older than I remembered. The lines on his face deeper. His eyes more tired. He offered his hand. I shook it. Firm, brief, no warmth. "Come in," he said. The house was silent, save for the ticking of a grandfather clock and the faint hum of the AC. We sat in the den, facing each other like opposing counsel in a negotiation room. A tray of whiskey sat untouched between us. "I'm not here to drink," I said. He nodded. "Didn't think you were." For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I reached into my bag and placed a manila folder on the coffee table. Inside, the florist receipt, the hotel invoice, the screen grab of Emily's bracelet in Leonard's Instagram photo. He didn't open it. "I already know," he said quietly. I studied his face. Not even a flinch. "How long?" I asked. He exhaled slowly. Not the sigh of a guilty man. More like someone carrying something heavy who's just been told he can set it down. 2 months, maybe more. I didn't ask for details. I felt something shift in my chest. Not the sudden crack of heartbreak, but the slow, cold burn of realization. "You knew," I said, my voice steady. "And you didn't say anything." He nodded. "That's right. No apology. No explanation. Just confirmation." "Why?" I asked. "Why would you let me sit across from you at dinner, share stories, toast to holidays, while knowing what she was doing?" He leaned back slightly, his fingers lacing together. "Because I thought it would pass," he said. "Because I thought you were strong enough to wait it out." Wait it out. The words hung in the air like smoke. Wait it out. I repeated, stunned. Like it was a storm? "She was restless," he said. "People get restless. Doesn't mean the marriage has to end. I served with men who cheated, got cheated on, and still went home to their families. That's just how the world works sometimes." "No," I said. "That's how your world works." He didn't argue. He didn't need to. He was a man from a generation that measured love in years served, not quality of service. Where stoicism was strength and emotional tolerance was a duty, not a choice. "You knew this would break me," I said, more to myself than to him. "No, Trevor. I thought you would hold," he said. "You're composed. Rational. A man of law. I assumed you'd do what I did when it happened to me." My breath caught. "When it happened to you?" He nodded. Slowly. Regretfully. "Emily's mother," he said. "Back in '88. A fellow officer. It lasted a few months. She came back. We never talked about it again." I stared at him. It was like seeing a blueprint I never asked for, one that explained everything I couldn't. "She knows that?" I asked. "Emily?" He nodded again. "Overheard us arguing once. She was in high school. I didn't think she remembered. But she had. Of course she had." Suddenly it all clicked, the way she dismissed consequences, how she minimized apologies, the casual shrug with which she buried truth. She had learned it wasn't fatal. That marriages don't end over betrayal. That men bend. That forgiveness is inevitable if you just pretend long enough. She hadn't invented the lie. She had inherited it. She was raised to believe there were no consequences, I said aloud, more realization than accusation. He didn't deny it. I stood up. "I thought coming here would give me answers," I said. But all I got was a map of where she learned how to lie. His face tightened, but he didn't rise. "Trevor," he said, "she still respects you. Maybe one day." "No," I interrupted. "We're not the same. You stayed. I'm leaving. That's the difference." I walked to the door. He didn't follow. "Tell her whatever you want," I said. "But don't tell her I'll come back." That door's closed. The sun was lower now. My car sat bathed in amber light. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of him through the window standing in the same rigid stance, staring into the distance like he was back on the base, waiting for a call that would never come. That night, I slept deeper than I had in months. And in the morning, I didn't think of her at all. The divorce was finalized with barely a ripple. No depositions, no courtroom drama, no drawn-out exchanges. Emily signed where she needed to, accepted the terms without protest, and walked out of our marriage the same way she had eroded it, quietly, without remorse, as though none of it really mattered. And yet, within a week, the social media posts began. At first, they were vague, grainy photos of sunsets, quotes about resilience and rediscovery, captions like, "Sometimes you lose yourself before you find yourself again." Then came the curated narrative, pictures of wine nights with old friends, filtered sh*ts from yoga retreats, and a lengthy post with her sitting cross-legged in a field of wildflowers, a single line written beneath. Healing isn't linear. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from what broke you. The comments poured in. "You're so brave. Proud of you. Keep shining, Em." She never mentioned my name, but the subtext was surgical. The unspoken message in every carefully composed update: she had been the victim. The one hurt. The one who had tried and been failed. I watched silently as mutual friends reached out to me, confused, curious, cautious. "Is everything okay? She seems different." "She hasn't said much, but are you doing all right?" I told them I was fine. I didn't tell them about the hotel receipt, or the ring on the nightstand, or Leonard Barnes and his too familiar smile. I didn't tell them about her father either. I had the proof stored in digital folders, password protected and backed up. Emails, images, receipts, timelines. Enough to counter every lie if I chose to. But I never shared them. Not even once. Not because I was protecting her, but because I was protecting myself. My boundary was silence. My healing didn't require public vindication. Let her keep her curated fiction. I had chosen reality. 6 months passed. I moved to Seattle. Took a faculty position at a local university teaching constitutional law and ethics. The pace was slower, the air cleaner, the silences less accusatory. I rented a small house near the water and spent weekends sailing. I hadn't done that since my 20s, back when ambition hadn't yet cost me every good thing I had. In time, I began writing again. Not case briefs or arguments. Just reflections. I started publishing a column on personal accountability and emotional resilience. Nothing sensational. Just honest words for people trying to make sense of their own quiet heartbreaks. And then there was Claire. We met in an online forum for educators. At first, it was just shared articles and jokes about grading policies. Then voice notes. Then video calls. She never pried into my past. Never asked why I paused before answering certain questions or why I sometimes fell silent in the middle of a sentence. She just existed beside me. In stillness. In laughter. In moments that didn't need explaining. One day, as we sat on a dock watching the sun disappear behind the water, she turned to me and said, "You don't talk much about before. But you don't have to. I get it." And she did. For the first time, I understood that peace doesn't come from justice or exposure. It comes from walking away. From refusing to play the game. From choosing to live in the light, even if someone else insists on standing in your shadow. Everything I once believed to be an ending had simply been the beginning. And I hadn't lost. I had let go.